Hello, dear friends. Today, I'm going to tell you about the movie 222. Enjoy watching. The film begins with a thrilling scene at New York's Central Station. A man enters the station, and another man, holding a gun, approaches a woman. The second man grabs the gun and orders the first man to stop. Everything happens at a fast pace. The clock at the station shows 2:22. Next, we move on to the main character, who wakes up from this dream and starts his usual day, doing his morning chores. He listens to the news about a rare cosmic event. After coffee and a shower, he rides his bike to work. Passing by various scenes of street life, he boards a train at the central station to the airport, where he works as an air traffic controller. Dylan sees his job as finding order in chaos, and he does it well. In the evening, he hangs out with his co-workers, gets tickets to an aerial ballet, and sticks to his regular schedule. Over the next few days, Dylan keeps following his routine, seeing it as a kind of pattern. One day, as the time approaches 2:22, he is at his workplace in the control tower. Then, we see Sarah in one of the planes about to land. When the clock strikes 2:22, Dylan notices a strange occurrence. At that moment, time seems to stand still for him, and he remembers his dream. This leads to a problem with two planes, and a possible collision becomes apparent. However, Dylan sees a solution to the problem and instructs both planes on how to proceed, preventing a collision. The planes fly dangerously close to each other. One takes off while the other lands. Dylan is suspended for 4 weeks. The next day, passing through the central station to get to the ballet, Dylan encounters events. Broken windows at the station make him stop and look at his watch, which shows 2:22. Then he arrives at the theater and takes his seat. His attention is drawn to a woman passing by. Dylan and Sarah's eyes meet during the aerial ballet. Later, seeing Sarah at the theater bar, Dylan decides to approach her and offer his support. Dylan asks if she wants a drink, and Sarah replies that she does, but not there. They go on a date to a bar. He tells the girl that his father was a pilot. Later, they have dinner, and when Sarah asks why he didn't follow in his father's footsteps, Dylan replies that he is terrified of flying. She tells him that she works in an art gallery, but really wanted to be a dancer. Dylan tells her what happened a few days ago at work when he almost killed 900 people. Sarah realizes that it was her flight, and instead of accusing him, she tells him that he saved her. They leave the restaurant, and both say that they feel like they have known each other forever. The next day, Sarah is working at the gallery when her ex-boyfriend Jonas, one of the artists who will soon have an exhibition there, joins her. He still has feelings for her and tells her that she is glowing. Meanwhile, Dylan receives a call, informing him that he left his wallet on the train the other day. Dylan picks up his wallet at the station and sees the following: a businessman reading a newspaper, a couple hugging, school children and their teacher, and a pregnant woman. The lamps begin to flicker, and when the clock strikes 2:22, sparks begin to fly from them. Later, Dylan goes to Sarah's gallery and stuns her with his appearance, then asks her to go to dinner with him. Sarah laughs, and instead they drink coffee together in the park. Finally, she tells the guy why she is not a ballerina. The reason for this is her injury at the very beginning of her blossoming ballet career. Dylan cheers her up by playing music on his phone and inviting her to dance in the park. They dance, then go back to her place and sleep together, doing adult things. The next morning, while talking in bed, they find out that they share the same birthday. Suddenly, he hears a car crash on the street and checks his watch to see if it happened at the same time. Later at work, Sarah talks to Jonas, and when he finds out that she is dating someone, he pretends to be happy for her. Dylan is riding in a taxi when he begins to notice the same thing that happened at work. He panics and argues with the taxi driver to take a different route. At that moment, they collide with a truck. Passers-by help Dylan get out of the taxi. He gets away with a minor head injury. The guy then goes to the central station and immediately finds Sarah. He tells her about the things he keeps seeing there, as well as about the time 2:22. Sarah comforts the guy, thinking he has a concussion. Later, Dylan returns home. The guy thinks that everything he sees and hears is part of some giant pattern that he needs to understand. He begins to write down everything he remembers on parchment paper. Dylan leaves the house again, paying close attention to everything in his path and writing it down on paper. He gets to work and tells his colleague that he feels like he's going crazy, then says that things are happening to him that cannot be explained. Later, we see Dylan stunned by everything he hears. The guy thinks it's part of some algorithm. Dylan makes a huge list that includes everything he keeps seeing at the station, and then wonders if it will all end in a climactic way. It's the opening night of Jonas's show, called Convergences. Dylan arrives at the gallery. Before he can approach the guy, Sarah is intercepted by Jonas. He quickly takes the girl away to see his art exhibition. Everyone is crowded into another room of the gallery, and Sarah introduces Dylan to Jonas. His work is a light installation depicting the central station. The audience is transported inside the station. Suddenly, Dylan notices that Jonas has included a clock stuck at 2:22 in his exhibition. Other elements of the algorithm also appear in the work. Dylan approaches Jonas and asks if the piece is some kind of joke, and if he is following him, thinking that it is all related to his exhibition. Jonas has no idea what is going on. They start fighting. Sarah and the gallery manager pull them apart. Then another curator starts applauding because he thinks it's all part of the exhibition. He congratulates Jonas on recreating the famous murder scene that took place at the station several years ago. The curator informs the audience that his own gallery has a different interpretation of the murder. Offended by Dylan, Sarah drags him away and tells him to leave. The guy leaves and sends her a message apologizing. Then he returns to the gallery, sees her talking to Jonas, and gets a little jealous. The next day, he trains furiously while listening to news about a cosmic phenomenon that will peak in the next 2 days. Dylan breaks his sports equipment, and when he tries to fix it, he sees a package hidden on a ceiling beam. He opens the package and finds a passport in the name of Jake Redmond, as well as several letters addressed to the same person. These letters are love letters. Meanwhile, he tries to contact Sarah, but is unable to reach her. The guy goes to see another exhibit from the murder scene. Dylan looks at the image and is joined by the curator. He tells him the story of what happened. The killer shot a pregnant woman and a police officer before the police shot him. Finally, he shows him a photo of the original crime scene at the central station. Dylan sees the name Jake Redmond under the photo. Back home, he researches the station and finds an article about the murder. The woman was killed in a fit of jealous rage by her lover. Dylan checks Jake's passport and discovers that they were born on the same day, 30 years apart. The young man notices the return address on the letters and decides to visit the location to learn more about the woman. Her sister now lives with her. The woman tells him about her sister, Evelyn Mills, a talented singer and kind person. She met Jake during one of her performances. Evelyn fell deeply in love with him and was not even disappointed when she found out he was a criminal. Everyone tried to warn her, including the detective who died at the station, Noah Marks. Evelyn's sister says that Noah was probably in love with her too, as the girl had a great influence on men. Dylan asks what she was doing at the central station. Her sister tells him that the detective wanted to hide Evelyn in his house in Millhurst. She gives Dylan Jake's letters. Back home, Dylan tries to figure out the pattern and sees a connection between the location of the planes on the day Sarah landed and the location of the bodies at the central station after the murder. He writes to Sarah about the connection he has discovered and begs her to call him back. Meanwhile, Sarah enters the light installation. Jonas joins her. She tells him about Dylan. Sarah says that Dylan sees the same people at the station that Jonas sees in his installation and also talks about the algorithm. Jonas believes that people who see algorithms in everything are not entirely sane. Dylan arrives at the station to buy a ticket to Millhurst, but the ticket seller informs him that the line has been closed for 30 years. He turns around and sees that the schedule board is changing to the desired line. The clock strikes 2:22. The chandelier at the station falls and shatters into pieces. Now Dylan decides to film everything he sees on his way home, checking the time. That night, he returned home and was working on an algorithm assignment when Sarah came to visit him. The guy apologizes to her. The girl asks if he is okay, thinking that something strange is happening to him. Dylan explains his discovery and tells her about Evelyn and Jake, but Sarah is concerned that he might lose control. The guy says that the incident happened exactly 30 years ago, on the day they were born, which means that tomorrow, history will repeat itself. Dylan tells her that Evelyn and Jake are actually Sarah and him, showing her the letters and explaining that they were actually written by them a lifetime ago. Sarah says that everything he saw and heard is just random events in a big city that happen every day and assures him that there is no algorithm involved. Dylan replies that the woman she was supposed to become will die at the hands of the husband she was supposed to be. The solution is that they can never see each other again. The guy kicks her out of his house. Dylan gets very upset and smashes the glass with her list of algorithms. Later, Sarah comes to Jonas and asks him again about the central station, telling him about the connection Dylan sees between all this. Jonas, however, thinks it's all a coincidence and says Dylan needs a psychiatrist. He then says he wants to take her away for a couple of days. Judging by the way Dylan looked at him, he thinks Dylan wanted to kill him. Sarah says she loves Dylan very much. At this point, Dylan, afraid that he might hurt Sarah, considers killing himself, but does not do so. The next day is their birthday. Dylan continues to think about algorithms while a report on a cosmic phenomenon is shown on television. Suddenly, the guy realizes this pattern and finds the only things that are really connected. The news reporter says that the phenomena they are now observing actually happened 30 years ago. Dylan begins to connect everything to the moment of his death. Sarah gets into a taxi with Jonas, who will take them to the airport. Jonas says that a couple of days in Millhurst will work wonders for her. Dylan leaves his seat and follows the algorithm pattern. Arriving at Jonas's apartment, he knocks on the door, but no one answers. The guy finds a way to pick the lock. Inside, he finds giant photos of Sarah, as well as a notebook with sketches from the station. Dylan also finds an empty gun case and realizes that Jonas is Noah Marks. He calls Sarah, but Jonas asks her not to answer. At that moment, he receives a message that their flight has been cancelled. Jonas directs the taxi to the central station. Dylan runs to the station and realizes that everything will go as he thought. Jonas and Sarah arrive at the station. The guy goes to buy tickets. Sarah sees the clock and follows them, then listens to Dylan's message. He knows that this is the way things are. He sees the day when they will die. Jonas gets the same information from the salesperson as Dylan. He buys tickets to another place nearby. Dylan has an incident with the police. He grabs one of their guns, but instead of putting it down, he pulls out the weapon and jumps out the window to get to the station. Jonas reaches Sarah with tickets to another place, but she no longer wants anything to do with him. He doesn't want to let her go, calls her Evelyn, and says she should love him. Suddenly, Dylan arrives. He calls out to the girl, which angers Jonas even more, so he reaches for his gun. Sarah sees the same thing Dylan saw: a businessman, a married couple, school children. She realizes that in their version of events, she is a pregnant woman standing under the clock. Jonas points the gun at Dylan, says she will never be his, and points the gun at Sarah. Dylan runs to her and jumps in front of Sarah when Jonas shoots. The clock approaches 2:22. The original version of the situation is revealed, in which Jake protects Evelyn just as Dylan now protects Sarah. Before Jonas can fire another shot, the clock strikes 2:22 and the police shoot him. Dylan falls to the ground. It turns out that Jake Redmond was never a murderer, but the police framed him to protect their own. In the end, only love can reveal the truth. Dylan does not die, and the clock strikes 2:23. In the last frame of the film, Sarah stands next to her child and looks out of the apartment window at Dylan, who has become a commercial airline pilot. He looks at his watch, because the plane usually flew by at this time, but now it hasn't happened. Dylan is happy because the algorithm in his life is gone.